Yeah, YouTubers, Tasman here bringing you, as promised, another episode of Operators. And technically, there's enough still to actually make a fourth part to this. Operators, there's a lot of information there, and we're not even going over all of it. We're kind of touching upon the most important parts for what we're trying to do. So, as promised, I did go and I didn't have 12 on the right place. I did go and I think I found a better way to show you how. Where's this window going to pop up? There it is. A better way to show you how the nullish coalescing operator works. So hopefully this will go a little smoother. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to come into our guy here. I'm going to shrink it down just a little bit. And we're going to delete all this if-then junk because I don't think we need it to describe this. Okay. So go ahead, if you have that, go ahead and delete it. I think I have a better way of explaining it without adding the complexity of the if-else statement. So what we're going to actually learn about, in addition to our logic, is there's something called short-circuiting. And a short-circuiting is where you can get an and or an or the nullish coalescing operator to short circuit. And what I mean by that, let's say we have, let's just do a console console.log. And let's just take a bunch of values. But we're going to stick either an and or an or between them, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to start with the and, since that's what we have first up here. So let's say we have a value of 10, and maybe in quotes we'll do false, F-A-L-S-E, so we have false, and let's do maybe an array. We talked very little bit about those, and we're going to definitely go into those more as well, and maybe actually the Boolean value false. Now, you might be thinking, what on earth is this actually going to output? Because the only thing we have that's a string is here. We know we could do console log 10, but what are the ands going to do in this case? Oops, there's only one there. So in this case, what's going to happen, it's called short circuiting. And with an and, if you remember from our drawing, which I don't have handy because I closed the Photoshop, that the truth table, maybe we could draw a quick one right here maybe. Let's go ahead. We're going to do a multi-line comment. I don't know if we talked about those, but you start it with a forward slash and the asterisk, and then you end it with an asterisk and a forward slash. So just the reverse. So we're going to, I don't know how I'm going to actually do this. So and let's go ahead and say 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, and we'll do true. Right, 4, 5, and do false, and then no, not that, false. And then if we come to the next line, we also need right here. Come on, come down there. There we go. We'll go here and do a true, and space go away, and a false. Oh, I hope this works. So we talked about how if we have a true value and another true value, we result in a true, right? If we have a true value and a false value, because an and, for it to be true, has to have both values being true, right? So a true and a false, or a false and a true, are going to be false. And of course, also a false and a false are going to be false, right? I don't know how else I can make this look a little prettier. Maybe if we did dashes here, maybe a couple more here, one more here or something, and then maybe a couple pipes. Maybe that'll work. Just to help separate it a little bit. All right, we'll pretend that works. And I could do something like this. And then maybe another set of dashes in here. I'm taking more time than I actually want to, but I want this to actually make sense so that you can look at it and go, okay, that makes sense. All right, so here we have our and, right? So if we have a true and a true, it's true. If we have a false and a true, it's false. If we have a false and a false, it's false. If we have a true and a false, it's false. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So now I'm gonna maybe come out here and we're gonna do the or one. So let's come out here and do or, come down here, go to end, and we'll just kind of put it right here. Go ahead and hit maybe there, Control C. Hopefully this is making sense to you, because I don't know really how else to do this. Control V, and we'll go ahead and just push that to, I think, about there. Then we'll go ahead and do this. Control C, go out here, put some spaces, Control V. And that, I think these go one more. There we go. And then this guy, Control C, Control V, come back. There we go. I think this looks okay. Hopefully you guys do too. Control V, and of course with our or, it changes basically these two here, because true and a true, true or true is still true, true or false is still true, and false or true is still true, right? So there we go. So there's our truth table. That might actually be good keeping it there, because then you'll actually be able to see it. So in this case, what we're seeing here is we know that every other value, if we go look up here, strings that are empty, 0, -0, and 0n, false, undefined, null, and not a number are all considered falsy values. Everything else is true. Therefore, this is true because it is a value. This is true because it's not an empty string. This is true because it's an object. Objects are not a falsy value. However, this is false because it's a Boolean and it's false. It's a falsy value. So when we're doing this, the way it works is I'm going to go ahead and copy out this real quick from my notes. If all are true, it returns the last, hold on, I want to make it a little bigger. It returns the last, returns, where's my notes? Oh, I don't have all my notes written. So if all are true, it returns the last true. Last, wait, what am I doing? Why did that go there? It returns the last, T-R-U-E-V-A-L-U-E. So in this case, where we're talking about this, we have a true, a true, a true, and then a false. Therefore, this whole thing would evaluate to false if it were, a condition, but we're going to short circuit it and get this value back. So if we go ahead and run this, you'll actually see that we get back false, because actually I didn't add that note yet. Let me go add that note real quick. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna, how should I do this? I want to keep it so it's legible. So maybe tab in like that, and then say the last true value. And then there's an otherwise type of situation where otherwise it's going to return false, right? So Control C on that, and then I will paste that there. Hopefully that makes sense. And we'll go ahead and just hit enter here and go ahead and add 2 more slashes. So basically, if all the values are true, the last true will be what's returned. Otherwise, it returns the last false. So, or technically it's the first false it comes across, because it's impossible for this to be true at all if there is a false value in it. So what this is going to do in this case is it's going to say true, 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 and false. So here we return false. If we change this to true, we will now actually get the true value back. So if I hit execute here, now you can see we get true. If we didn't have the true as the last one there, if we got rid of this altogether, the last thing it's going to return will be the last true value, so it's going to return us an empty array. So let's go ahead and save, and there we go. There's our empty array. So in order for it to return false, there has to be a false value in here. Otherwise it's going to short circuit at the one that meets the last criteria, I guess, that it can. Whoops, Control Z. So I'm going to stick back in. Oh my gosh, why is that not? There we go. We'll go and FALSE. Okay, so that's basically what a short circuit is. Basically, it's going to evaluate until it finds a value that is incorrect, and then it's either going to return the false value that it found that's incorrect, or if it hits the end, it's going to be the last value that evaluated to true. Boy, I hope that made sense. So the next thing we're going to look at is we're gonna create a constant. Const, and we're going to call this open. So we're going to say this is the opening time for a business, right? So we could put in 24-hour time, we could say, 24. There is no actual 24, so 23 is 11. But in a 24-hour clock, 0 is basically when it says, hey, I'm back to the beginning, So we're going to say if it's open 24 hours, we'll actually go ahead and just say 0, right? Now, remember that we talked about the falsy values. This 0 technically is a falsy value. So if I'm trying to evaluate something with an OR statement and I get this falsy value, it will consider that false, right? So if we come in here, and now let's just grab this guy up here, Control C and Control V. So now we're going to actually change this to, let's change it to open. And let's, for now, get rid of all this other stuff, right? So right now, this is a false statement. If we run it, you'll see we get back 0 because it's a false statement. However, this should not be a false statement because 0 is a value. And this is where the nullish coalescing operator comes in. The nullish coalescing, man, I can't even say that. The nullish coalescing operator doesn't return anything as false if it actually has a defined value. So if there's a space in here, it is considered true, or even the fact that there is a space or a double quote, single quote, this is considered true. These would all be considered true. However, undefined is obviously not defined. Null is not defined, not a number. Technically not, I guess not defined. I don't know if I've ever checked if not a number reports anything. And then false actually is a value as well. So the nullish coalescing operator will only return false if the value is undefined. So in this case, we would, if we did, oh, this is AND, by the way, we need OR. So if we do that, now you'll see that false was our last one. So with the OR operator, since we can have false values and it can still come back as true, because we can have one be false, or the other be false, but we can't have both be false when evaluating. So if we're evaluating this, we have a false and a false. Therefore, it's actually reporting back that, hey, this is a whole false statement. If we go ahead and do this as quotes, whoops, like that, we'll see that we just get our empty quotes. This is the last false value, so that's what we're going to get since it considers this false. So let's go ahead and just add a couple little notes here, what the truthy value, or what the short circuiting for this is going to be. So we're going to hit C here and maybe a couple spaces. So here you can see returns the last evaluated truthy value, or it returns the last false. Just like the other one, it will return the last false if there was no truthies there. So if we do V there, just like that. So now you can see that if we go add more things to this, in fact, let's go add, let's go add this right here, Control C. I'm gonna go ahead and paste this in here, which is gonna screw up all my stuff now. Dang it. Let's go ahead and hit enter there, space, space, space. And go ahead and do that. There we go. And I bet this is going to push over too now. To there. We'll go ahead and hit enter there. And okay. So it's going to return the last evaluated truthy value. Otherwise, it returns the last false value. And that's what we saw in our case here, that both the open and the empty quotes was considered false, therefore it returned the last false before it hit the very end. So here we have something that technically should be true. However, because it's a falsy value, it's going to report false. This is going to be false. This is going to be true, and null obviously is going to be false. So now we're going to get back our whatchamacallit, our array. So here you can see now we got back our array as our value. So this is where the nullish coalescing operator comes in. So if we wanted to look at this and say, oh wait, actually, you know, I don't want every falsy by name falsy value to count. If it's defined, I want it to actually be fine. So if we come and we use our nullish coalescing operator, which I have right here, Control C, go and paste that in, this is going to actually return the value open, which is 0, because this is the first true value, right? So, and it's, well, technically it's, actually it'll return the array again. If we do, no, actually, I think I wrote that wrong. Returns the first truthy value, I believe. Even going through this, it gets really confusing. So this is returning our first truthy. So I believe this is our first evaluated truthy, right? Our truthy value. Otherwise, it will return, once again, the last false. So here we actually have this being considered, because it is defined, it will do that. So basically, it's going to be the exact same thing as this. However, it's using the nullish coalescing operator. If that's really confusing to you, I apologize. It is pretty confusing, I have to admit. I'm going to go ahead. I want to keep this part up here. So I'm going to move our little closing bracket so we can actually have our next part right here. So just like in math, we have an order of operations, or the precedence that things take. Actually, before that, I just looked at my notes. There is one other thing I want to talk about, and this is only going to be talking about instead of actually going into. There's also bitwise operators. We're not, at least at this point, we're not planning on going into bitwise operators. They're more for, you know, doing operations on bits, you know, binary values. And I don't necessarily see that being something right now, at least, that we need to go over for this. So we're not doing that. So the next thing I wanted to go over is actually the precedence over these operators that we've been talking about. So O-P-E-R-A-T-O, operator, P-R-E-S, precedence, P-R-E-S-E-D-E-N-C-E. I never told you guys I could spell. All right, so I'm going to copy once again from my notes this, and I probably will have to do some formatting if it gets too long on things. Although, maybe I won't do it, because if we don't need this window open for what we're going to do. So if we actually open this up wider, we'll be able to see better. So I'm going to go ahead and paste, whoops, that's the wrong thing. I didn't hit copy yet. We're going to talk about these guys. And then we're going to call it good for this episode. So these are going to be in a multi-line comment again. Still looks like we got a little bit over. Okay, so let's talk about these. So this is the order in which things are executed. So when the program is going through the code and saying, okay, here's a big chunk of code I need to evaluate. We've got multiply, we got divide, add, subtract, we're comparing, we're doing all this stuff. This is the order it's going to do it in. So first, it will do everything in the grouping of the parentheses. So when it's looking at a line, just like in algebra, it's going to do what's inside of parentheses first. It's going to evaluate that to a number or value, and then it will basically replace everything including the parentheses with that value. After that, we have our incrementing and decrementing operator will be the second thing it evaluates. Next would be exponents. Then we have the multiply, divide, and the modulus, or the remainder. Then we have addition, subtraction. Then we start having our comparison operators, which are all these guys. Then we have our logic operators. And we're going to talk about this guy, which is condition. This is probably going to be when we're talking about if statements, because technically it is a single line if statement. And then finally, we have our assignment operators. And as you can see, we have equals, plus equals, minus equals, times equals, exponent equals, divide equals, and modulus equals. And I think this line right here actually goes there. I'm not sure why it's... Oh, that's a comma. That's why. So anyway, we have a lot to go over still. Our next thing we're going to be addressing will actually be conditions. So we will end up talking about, I think they call this the ternary operator or something like that, where it's technically an if statement just in one line. And that will make a lot more sense when we get to it. Excuse me. So I think we're going to go ahead and call it here. This is finally the real ending for our operators. It took us 4 parts. I really hope this kind of makes sense to you. If things don't make sense to you, one, you can always leave a comment down below and I will try and explain it better. Or you could go to my Discord and chat with me there. Or you could just say, I'm going to take it with a grain of salt and maybe it'll clear up in one of these future episodes. It is really kind of hard to teach some of these things like I was doing the other day, where I was actually using an if-then statement to try and explain the nullish coalescing operator. And that wasn't a very good way to do it. So, hopefully this made a little more sense. And if you have questions, like I said, go ahead and leave them. I will be more than happy to answer them. And I think that is it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up down below. Aside from that, comment, like, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Check out my Discord. And I keep forgetting, click the notification bell. tell other people about my channel. Have them check it out. If they like what they see, they can sub. And that's it. Until next time, I'll be seeing you later. Bye.